Hey everybody, this is Modern Refugee. Wanted to do a video for you guys on how I go about selecting gear. And a lot of the gear that preppers carry and use is potentially life-saving equipment. So I have a sort of a specific way that I go about selecting my gear that I might have to call on in a bad situation. And I also wanted to mention, I met a couple of young guys yesterday that picked me out of the crowd, and they said, "Hey, are you Modern Refugee?" And I said, "Yeah," and we had a little bit of a conversation, and thought it was pretty cool because it was the first time that somebody on the street recognized me because of my channel. So I thought that was pretty neat, and I wanted to sort of shout those guys out a little bit. And they were also younger, and it's something that I've noticed, especially since the pandemic. There is a small percentage of the younger population that is into preparedness and sort of the survival mindset, and it was good to see those young guys basically practicing that kind of stuff, and into the preparedness community on YouTube, being able to recognize me and stuff. I think there's certain things that are changing because of our world, where the younger generation is starting to realize that these skills are something that potentially might be needed in the future. And it was really neat talking to those guys, so I definitely wanted to give them kudos for approaching me and coming up to me like that. But anyway, getting back to the point of this video here, I don't like newfangled stuff that comes out. There's a lot of new stuff that comes out, and it always seems like people in the prepping and the firearms community will always run into this new stuff to sort of give them an edge, I guess. I prefer, what I call mature platforms. I want older, proven designs. And it kind of goes back to what the old timers said. The old timers always said you never buy the car the first model year that it comes out, because they don't have the bugs worked out of it yet. It's basically the same principle. And there's another, point to it too. A lot of people don't like using the self-checkouts at stores. They say, well, I'm not working for the company. If I'm checking out my own stuff, I'm basically working for the company. Well, it's kind of like that with new gear too. There's a lot of companies that use customer complaints as their beta testing, so they don't have to spend money on tweaking their designs. They just market it, put out their new design, and then off the customer complaints, they go ahead and then they tweak that stuff from basically the customer complaints. So whether the customer knows it or not, they know whether the customer knows it or not, they become an employee of the company because they're doing basically the job that the manufacturers should have done in the first place. And there's certain firearms manufacturers that do that all the time, and I sort of know that from selling that stuff for so many years. But I like proven designs. That's where I start. I don't just end it there, though. I take it one step further, and I actually proof that equipment and that gear. And even a really good company can make a bad piece of equipment from time to time, and I've had a couple different instances, which I'm going to share with you guys here, where that happened to me. And now this isn't to beat up these companies or anything. It's just one of those things. It's just life in general, I guess. One was a particular knife that I bought. It was a Mora Garberg stainless. Wanted one, had a really good reputation. I said, you know what, there's always room for another bushcraft knife in my repertoire, I guess. So I went ahead and I purchased one of them, used it for about a month off and on, seemed to be all right, and took it out one day and did what I thought was a pretty basic bushcraft task. And sure enough, I took a chunk out of the blade, and I thought to myself, yep, that's why I test stuff. It took me a couple of weeks to get the notch out of that blade, but I wouldn't have known that if I just bought it, took it out of the package and threw it in a pack. I wouldn't have known it. And then it had the potential where that could have failed doing what I thought was a pretty basic task when I needed it most. And that's why you got to go out and you got to proof your gear. You got to put your gear under a little bit of stress to see how it's going to perform. Another particular instance that I had, this goes back quite a ways, goes back to the mid-late 90s. I bought a Glock 22 full size, and because it was sort of the in thing. Everybody liked Glocks. They had a pretty good reputation, and so I went ahead and I purchased this one, and I started using it. I had a lot of problems with that particular gun. It malfunctioned a lot. I didn't care for it, and I tried multiple different things to, kind of correct the problems, but nothing really worked. And finally got disgruntled, and I ended up trading it off on something else. And I had a bad attitude toward Glocks for a lot of years because of that. And then slowly I had different people tell me, hey, they've redesigned things. You need to, they've tweaked it a little bit. Go ahead and try another one. So I kind of begrudgingly got another one, got a Glock 23 then, and didn't have any problems with that whatsoever, and slowly came back around again. And now Glocks are one of my carry guns, Glocks and classic SIGs. And just because it's a good brand name and it's a good reputation, you're not going to know until you run stuff. And like I said, it doesn't really matter what it is. It could be a backpack, it could be a firearm, it could be a knife, it could be a piece of electronic equipment, GPS, whatever. You got to get out and you got to try it, because the mature platform and the good reputation of the company only goes so far, because each individual piece of equipment, especially for individual people, you're going to be using that. Everybody's going to use that equipment a little bit differently one way or another. Another thing that I've had pop up in the comments too, where people say, well, why are you using a $50 or an $80 knife to do that task, And I think people purchase gear sometimes as status symbols, and my gear is there to serve me. I don't serve my gear. So if I got to take an $80 knife or whatever and I got to bend it or break it to get out of the bad situation that I'm in, that's what it's there for. I'm not afraid to beat that stuff to get out of those bad situations, because that's why I purchased that stuff. That's why I selected a mature platform. That's why I proofed it, so I know it can handle some abuse. Because if I need that gear, if I'm in that situation where I have to put that gear right to the max, I want to know that it's going to work for me. Because you know what? After that situation is over with and I'm out of that situation, I can go purchase another one and start the process over again. And that's just something that I wanted to mention. I think people sometimes purchase gear like status symbols, or they run to the new stuff, but it's not always I think people, to a certain extent, they kind of fall for the marketing in certain items, or they get attached to a certain brand or something. Sort of like I was down on Glocks for a lot of years, and now I've sort of come full circle back where, I kind of trust them and I like them again. And that's just the ebb and flow of picking that gear and selecting it. But don't be afraid to use your gear, proof your gear, test it out. Don't always look at the brand new stuff. Give that stuff a chance to prove itself. Let the engineers get the bugs worked out of that stuff. Just don't always go to the brand new stuff right away, because sometimes even the best stuff that has the best reputation can fail. It's just life and the way things are. But anyway, I just wanted to bring that up, and I thought that was a decent talking point that people might be able to get some use out of and look at selecting their gear in a little bit different fashion. But anyways, Modern Refugee, appreciate all my subscribers out there. Hope you guys get a little information, a little entertainment out of my videos as always, and you guys have a good one.